Why are you even watching pro wrestling? It's not real. He's not even punching him. He's not even close. Why don't you watch a real sport, like the darts?
Here we go again. My non-fan friend is telling me why I shouldn't like wrestling. But he has no idea wrestling has changed more about media than he knows.
Rubbish movie, 2 stars.
Over the last 50 years, how we've consumed wrestling content has changed drastically. From closed-circuit TV to pay-per-view to VHS to DVD to Blu-ray to streaming services, how we watch things we enjoy at home has undergone a gigantic and essentially irreversible transformation. And did you know that WWE has been at the forefront of every single one of those changes over the last 50 plus years? WWE has, for all intents and purposes, helped transform the way we consume wrestling media. And this is present across every single decade of the company's existence, from pay-per-views in the 1980s to the groundbreaking deal with Netflix in the 2020s. So how did this happen? How did this pro wrestling company, to some degree, ostensibly change Western media culture? This is how WWE changed the way you watch media.
Look, I've got a video for you to watch.
And how are we going to watch that then?
Well, there's this brand new thing where you pay for it and it's broadcast directly into your own home.
You mean we don't have to go out and buy tickets from syndicated locations? That's nonsense! What's it called?
Pay-per-view. I'll just play the video.
Chapter 1. WWF and NWA, CCTV or PPV? TBD. Before the invention and nationalization of pay-per-view events, there was a system in place called CCTV, or closed-circuit television. CCTV was typically used to broadcast live events to specific places like arenas and theaters. Audiences would purchase tickets to these venues and watch the events broadcast on a big screen, which, funnily enough, is something that has come back into fashion over the last couple of years because time is a flat circle. CCTV was a fine idea as it allowed people who couldn't attend a live event in person to watch it from a different venue. But what if you could take the idea of CCTV and put it in someone's home so they didn't even have to leave their house to see it? That was the birth of pay-per-view. And it's quite literal in its meaning. Audiences would now be paying for each view of the event, rather than venues broadcasting the event to a large crowd of people. The transition from CCTV to pay-per-view began in the late 70s and early 80s, with the first true direct-to-home pay-per-view event being credited to the boxing match between Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns in 1981. The event was available to cable viewers who paid an extra fee to watch the fight live, the earliest form of what would become pay-per-view. And this is where wrestling comes into our story. However, contrary to what WWE will want you to believe, WrestleMania 1 was, in fact, not the first wrestling pay-per-view. Like most rewritten WWE history, it was actually WCW that got there first, as in 1983, Jim Crockett Promotions aired Starrcade on pay-per-view, and the success of that Starrcade made the WWF's Vince McMahon see that there was money in those there pay-per-view hills, which is what he did in 1985 with WrestleMania 1. And even then, WWE's rewritten history isn't entirely accurate, as WrestleMania 1 wasn't a complete pay-per-view model the way that we know it today, as it was also broadcast in several locations across the United States via CCTV. The full pay-per-view model would come for the WWF in November of 1985 when they hosted the Wrestling Classic, which featured a 16-man tournament and a world title match between Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper. Whatever the accuracy of WWE's version of history, which is very inaccurate, there's no arguing that WrestleMania 1 was a success. Such a success, in fact, that they upped the ante for WrestleMania 2, not just broadcasting on pay-per-view, but also from 3 separate locations, which which was an insane logistical task at the time, considering not just the viewership experience for those in attendance, but also to try and coordinate the broadcast feed on pay-per-view and CCTV. Did it work? No, not really. And it's a rubbish show. WrestleMania 3 in 1987 was where WWF really began to stake their claim in the pay-per-view market and truly become revolutionary. Mania 3 was available to 6.5 million homes across the United States and, according to figures released by Titan Sports, had a 10.2 buy rate. Taking away those who purchased tickets for closed-circuit broadcast, which were still available for the show, WrestleMania 3, headlined by the iconic Hulk Hogan vs. Andre the Giant title match, is estimated to have been purchased by almost 400,000 homes, netting WWF $10 million. Now, while Vince McMahon and WWF were raking in huge money in the pay-per-view game, Jim Crockett Promotions had been successful taking over the home video market. The 1986 Starrcade, which had pulled respectable numbers in the CCTV market as it is, became the best-selling VHS of all time. But Crockett also wanted a slice of that pay-per-view pie, a pie that he actually put in the oven in the first place. And so Starrcade 1987 was announced to be available on nationwide pay-per-view to the ire of Vince McMahon, who felt that he should have a monopoly over the pay-per-view model, having hosted Manias 1 through 3 through it. So Vince did what Vince does, he tried to shut down the competition. WWF announced a brand new pay-per-view that would compete directly with Starrcade on pay-per-view, Survivor Series, a show that saw all of the WWF's biggest names in massive multi-man elimination matches, including a monster main event of Team Hogan versus Team Andre. Crockett, being a reasonable promoter, simply moved his show to earlier in the afternoon. Great news for wrestling fans, eh? Now they can watch 2 shows. Also, great news for the networks promoting both shows, as they can now sell a package deal for a whole day of wrestling fun. Everyone's a winner. But not for Vince McMahon. If everyone's a winner, then he's not the only winner. So he gave the networks an ultimatum. If you broadcast Starrcade, you won't just lose WrestleMania 4, you'll lose all upcoming WrestleManias. All but 3 of the cable companies folded, and can you blame them? WrestleMania was a proven money maker, while Starrcade was an unknown. It was a risk from the WWF, but it paid off. Starrcade was dropped from 70% of the nation's schedule, replaced by the shiny new Survivor Series. Wow, doing 2 pay-per-views worked, so shall we try doing 3? WWF added SummerSlam in 1988, headlined by the Mega Powers versus the Mega Bucks, to great success. Whew, doing 3 pay-per-views worked even better. Let's do 4! They added the Royal Rumble to its pay-per-view roster in 1989, following its television success the year prior. 4 worked wonderfully. Why not do more? They added King of the Ring in 1993, and in 1995 introduced their next new pay-per-view concept, In Your House. In Your House was a simple and brilliant idea. Smaller, lower-cost pay-per-views that took place between the Big 4 of WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and Royal Rumble. In Your House shows were, in essence, WWF's first B-shows. In the span of about 10 years, WWF went from doing 1 pay-per-view to 1 pay-per-view a month. The In Your House name lasted way longer than you'd think too, with Backlash 1999 being the last to bear the branding. WWF's pay-per-view model was so strong they could now do full-length pay-per-views, the same as the Big 4 every single month, and people still bought them. Especially as the Attitude Era had ushered in a new prosperous era for fans. In 2000, WWF produced 14 pay-per-views, 12 in the United States and 2 in the UK, Insurrection and Rebellion. And during the mid-2000s, WWE at times ran 2 pay-per-views a month at full price. Many WrestleManias topped 1 million pay-per-view buys, 8 of them to be exact, with WrestleMania 28 holding the distinction of WWE's biggest buy rate with 1.2 million pay-per-view buys. WWE had dominated the pay-per-view market and even the home video market with VHS and DVDs, but all of that was set to change in 2014 with their next gamble, the WWE Network.
Oh man, buffering!
I really hope that isn't some form of foreshadowing.
Chapter 2, $9.99. Rewinding slightly, in the year 2000, WWE signed a new TV rights deal with Viacom to move Monday Night Raw from its longtime home on the USA Network to Spike TV. This triggered a lawsuit from USA Network, who did not want to lose their top-rated program. The details of that lawsuit are unimportant for this specific video, but something that then WWF CEO Linda McMahon said during the suit is important. Linda mentioned that before signing the deal with Viacom, WWF had wanted its own cable network, even floating the idea of purchasing USA Network's Sci-Fi channel and rebranding it as a dedicated wrestling network. USA execs obviously rejected the idea, with former USA Network president Barry Barker being quoted as saying, "I can tell you right now, Linda, you're not going to get anybody to give you a network." But if we've learned anything from this video up until this point, is that WWE are stubborn. So fast forward a decade to 2011, and WWE announced that a WWE Network was in development, with plans to launch in 2012 as a pay TV channel. WWE had toyed with streaming and channels like this in the past with things like WWE 24/7, which was later rebranded to WWE Classics On Demand, but this was going to be different. The original launch date for the network was set for April 1st, 2012, which would have coincided with WrestleMania 28. WWE's own website even featured a countdown clock to the launch, but this clock was quietly removed and the network did not launch in April, nor did it launch for the rest of 2012 or 2013. But on January 8th, 2014, WWE announced the WWE Network, revealing it would be the first ever 24/7 streaming network dedicated to wrestling content. There was a slew of original content promised with the network, like shows from Jerry Springfield, the team behind MTV's Jackass, an animated series in the vein of South Park, and a reality TV show called Legends House that WWE had struggled to shop around to traditional TV. Most importantly though, all 12 pay-per-view shows from across the calendar year were scheduled to be included in the price of the network, starting with WrestleMania 30, and all of this for just $9.99 a month, a price that they were very, very proud of. An online streaming service dedicated to just WWE content was a bold and risky move at the time. The presence of the likes of Netflix wasn't anywhere near as prevalent as it is nowadays. To give you an idea of how big the WWE Network was as an idea in 2014, the New York Times called it the cutting edge of internet television. It was a bold move. How bold of a move was it? Well, let's look at the numbers. Pre-network, pay-per-views cost $44.95 per show. Shows like WrestleMania were even more, costing each viewer around $54.95. So if you were to purchase all 12 WWE pay-per-views across a calendar year, that would cost you over $550. Getting all pay-per-views for $9.99 a month meant that not only were you just spending $119 per year, you're getting all of the extra content on top of that, like the archives of every previous WWE, WCW, and ECW pay-per-view. The annual savings for fans was over $430 a year, which is great for fans. But the other way to look at that is that WWE are losing $430 per fan every single year. And because all of the pay-per-views are on the network, the need for home video is also gone, another revenue loss. It's no surprise that when WWE launched the network with WrestleMania 30, experts wondered if this would blow up spectacularly in their faces. On February 24th, 2014, the network launched, and almost immediately the sign-up page crashed, with WWE's technology partner Major League Baseball Advanced Media admitting that the initial surge of interest overwhelmed their systems. By the end of March 2014, the WWE Network had 500,000 subscribers. In the week leading to WrestleMania 30, a further 182,000 people joined, leading to an announced total on April 7th of 667,287 subscribers. It's a fine number, but it was also much lower than WWE expected. And, more importantly, it was lower than investors had been told they would be getting, because WWE had told its investors ahead of its launch that they needed 1 million subscribers to just break even, and 2 million subscribers to double the amount they would have made on pay-per-view. And WWE thought they were going to get 2 million subscribers out the gate, because they argued there were 52 million homes in the US that had both broadband and at least one person in the house with an affinity for WWE, so all they needed to do was convert 4% of those homes. The problem, many smarter people argued that if there were 52 million homes with one person with an affinity for WWE, their TV ratings would be much higher. This was around the time that Raw was getting 5 million viewers a week, which means they didn't need to convert 4% of its audience, they needed to convert 40% of its audience. And they didn't. So WWE stock, which had rocketed following the announcement of the network, plummeted. It was the biggest drop since 1999. According to Forbes, Vince lost a third of his $1.1 billion fortune. But WWE are stubborn. They just needed 1 million subscribers to break even. So they spent the rest of the year putting out gimmick after gimmick to get people to sign up. And while they didn't hit 1 million in 2014, they did shortly after the 2015 Royal Rumble. Finally, they could breathe. They'd done it! 1 million subscribers! And thankfully, Royal Rumble 2015 is remembered as a great show. LOL! By WWE's second quarter, they announced that 128,000 subscribers had left the network. Less than 1 year later, and it looked like the WWE Network was going to fail. With a potential failure of the network looming with slower than expected growth and subscribers exiting the platform, WWE quickened their plans for international expansion. And this was tricky for a variety of reasons, but never was it trickier than here in the UK. WWE had a long-standing relationship with Sky, which saw Raw and SmackDown aired live on their Sky Sports channels, which you have to pay extra for, as well as the monthly pay-per-views at another extra cost. It was a great deal for both parties. Those Insurrection and Rebellion pay-per-views I mentioned earlier were UK exclusive pay-per-views as part of this deal with Sky. And this partnership continued and flourished throughout the years, with WWE signing a new deal with Sky in January 2014. That would see, beginning in 2015, Sky continuing to broadcast WWE pay-per-views on pay-per-view through to 2019. So you can imagine they were a little bit annoyed when WWE shortly announced plans to release pay-per-views at a much cheaper price point with no involvement from Sky. WWE announced they were going to launch the WWE Network in the UK in November 2014, but minutes before it launched, the whole thing was pulled and delayed indefinitely because reportedly, Sky put in a legal challenge to its launch. The network was eventually launched in the UK and Ireland in January 2015 with a price point that was 50% more expensive than the rest of the world. But it was worth it once again, as the growth in international subscribers was largely attributed to us here in the UK and Ireland. You're welcome, WWE. New countries were added over the next few years, with the likes of Philippines, India, Thailand, and Germany, Austria, and Japan being able to subscribe to the network in 2015 and 2016. By 2018, the WWE Network had over 2 million subscribers, which would drop to 1.6 million subscribers by the end of that year. Sorry, what happened in 2018 again? LOL. The WWE Network was, in theory, a good idea, and it did change the way we watch wrestling shows. It's been 10 years since the launch of the network, and it is hard to remember a time when WWE were on traditional pay-per-view. And while it didn't make money, it could always be sold for it.
Oh, balls, I really didn't mean to do that. I'm really struggling with the interface on this streaming service.
Yeah, it's really not that user-friendly, although it's actually a miracle you managed to do that because they didn't even have a pause button on there for the first few months.
That seems counterintuitive. It's almost like they have no idea what their fan base really wants.
Chapter 3. I want to see your Peacock. The WWE Network was a money loser for WWE. They'd sacrificed their pay-per-view buy rates as well as the lucrative home video market. So the most sensible thing to do is cut your losses and sell it, which is what they did in January 2021, as WWE announced that NBC Universal Television had acquired the exclusive US distribution rights to the WWE Network and that the service would be folded into the NBC Universal-owned streaming service Peacock beginning in March 2021. The deal was announced for 5 years, meaning Peacock has the rights until 2026, with an estimated value of around $1 billion. This was a huge win for WWE. Not only did they have another revenue source, they were reaching a wider audience and had reduced operational complexities of managing a standalone streaming service. It didn't actually spell the end of the WWE Network though, as it continued to be offered around the rest of the world. However, in 2022, more deals were penned to merge the WWE Network into other broadcasting services in other countries, such as Hotstar Disney Plus in Indonesia and Binge in Australia. So what does the future hold for the network, and does Peacock factor into it? Well, in May 2023, after the merger was announced between WWE and UFC to form TKO, WWE President Nick Khan was already dropping hints that the Peacock deal might not be long-term, saying in an interview at the SVB Moffett-Nathanson Technology, Media and Telecom Conference, "I think with that deal, which was done in March of 2021, that deal is probably the most under-market deal, in my opinion, in the entire media business right now. We did it, and we were thrilled when it happened. We're still thrilled with the partnership, but if you look at the dollars, Wall Street Journal announced over $1 billion, around $1 billion over the life of the deal. It's way undervalued at this moment in time. Obviously, we have a contract. We'll see what happens." Wow, the SVB Moffett-Nathanson Technology, Media and Telecom Conference sounds like an absolute riot. Leave a comment down below with your favorite moment from it.
Can you do a nonsense sake? Sorry to be a dick. Can you say the SVB Moffett-Nathanson Technology, Media and Telecom Conference? Bet you that's a riot. Can you leave a comment below? Comment down below, noting your favourite moment from the SVB Moffett-Nathanson Telecom Conference.
I'll see if I can. Boy, the SVB Moffett-Nathanson Technology, Media and Telecom Conference. Bet you that's a riot. You should leave a comment down below with your favourite moment from the SVB Moffett-Nathanson. Damn it! Also, I can't think of it without... So the SVB won't let me be, so let me be me, so let me see. Anyway, Khan's comments are, I think, code for, we are making hilariously less money than we should, and Peacock will have to offer us a metric ton more than they did before, otherwise we'll shop it elsewhere. And that's exactly what they did.
Yes, of course we're still watching. I don't know why it asks you that.
Butcher!
Like I was saying, I think it's really weird that a platform that has specialized in making people binge watch programming often asks you if you're still binge watching the thing it wants you to binge watch.
Chapter 4, Netflix and Chill. Lee McFreeze. On January 23rd, 2024, WWE decided to drop an announcement of one of the biggest developments to wrestling programming in years. WWE had partnered with Netflix to make it the exclusive home of Raw in the United States, Canada, the UK, and Latin America, with additional countries being added over time. Netflix would also get the international rights to SmackDown, NXT, and big pay-per-view events, which had since been rebranded to PLEs, or Premium Live Events, which makes sense because they're not on pay-per-view anymore. Variety reported that Netflix paid $5 billion over 10 years for this deal, including an opt-out after 5 years if Netflix deems the relationship isn't working, or an extension for another 10 years if they think it's going great. And while Netflix is the largest streaming service in the world with over 247 million subscribers, there is one area where they have been lacking: sports. They'd been quite vocally anti-sport beforehand, with co-CEO Ted Sandros saying at the UBS Global TMT conference in December 2022, "We're not anti-sport, we're just pro-profit." Boy, the UBS Global TMT conference sounds like an absolute riot. Leave a comment down below with your favorite moment from the UBS Global TMT conference. So what softened their stance on sports? Nothing really, because they don't consider WWE a sport. During Netflix's fourth quarter earnings, Ted Sandros said, "WWE is sports entertainment. It's really as close to our core as you can get in terms of sports storytelling. In terms of the deal itself, it has the options and the protections we seek in our general licensing deals, and with economics that we're super happy with globally. So I would not look at this as a signal of a change to our sports strategy." This is an unprecedented deal for both WWE and Netflix. Never before has WWE, or pro wrestling for that matter, been on such a large, global platform before, and this is experimental for Netflix too, broadcasting live as well as hosting WWE's catalogue of content, not to mention the money to be made, and not just from new signups, because Netflix have shifted their focus over the last few years with the introduction of lower price tiers, where viewers will still be served advertisements. While it's been reported that those on the higher tiers of Netflix won't be served ads during Raw, those on lower ad-based tiers will, which could turn out to be an incredibly lucrative revenue stream for Netflix based on 3 hours of content per week that currently averages 1.5 to 1.7 million viewers. Not to mention, this could help Netflix break into Asian markets that they've struggled with in the past. WWE has a huge Indian following, but Netflix is still behind Disney+, Hotstar, and Prime Video in that country. Could this be the thing that changes that? We are on the precipice of a big change in the wrestling industry, and there's genuinely no way to tell what will happen next. It is fascinating looking back at WWE's history of broadcasting and media. Across generations, WWE have looked to be at the forefront of change when it comes to TV. Vincent J. McMahon, Vince's dad, was the one who saw the potential to put wrestling on TV in the first place. Vince McMahon was the one who saw the potential of pay-per-views in wrestling and made it the norm. And while he was shot down at the time, Shane McMahon was the one who saw the potential of online shows and the internet and how WWE could evolve with it. There's more on that in Ollie's The Fall of the McMahons video, so watch that for the full story. I've linked to it in the video description. WWE has always been a gamble-heavy company. Putting wrestling on TV was a gamble. Running WrestleMania on pay-per-view was a gamble. Launching the WWE Network was a gamble. Netflix is a gamble. And it may seem like they're either incredibly lucky or very smart to consistently have these gambles mostly pay off. And even then, while the WWE Network was not the big success WWE thought it was going to be financially, there is no arguing that it changed the way fans consume wrestling shows. When AEW announced that it was running shows on traditional pay-per-view, we had emails from younger fans asking us, are people really going to pay $50 4 times a year to watch wrestling pay-per-views? Even though WWE were asking fans to do that every single month just 6 years earlier. But while they have succeeded elsewhere, let's not forget the failed experiments too. Because WWE have always been testing their product in new ways. Remember Mixed Match Challenge? That was broadcast on Facebook Watch. That could have been the way online shows were going, but nope, didn't pan out, so they tried something else. Who remembers the incessant plugs for Tout, the failed social media network that WWE invested in because they didn't want their viewers looking at Twitter? And that was the second step following the failed launch of their own social platform hosted on WWE.com because they didn't want their viewers looking at Twitter, which is hilarious in hindsight because WWE have just penned a deal to host WWE Speed exclusively on Twitter. WWE are always looking to find the next way to innovate and change the way we watch their product. And as long as they keep trying, they'll find the next way we consume media.
So you see, the way that you consume media has been changed over and over again by WWE.
I get the media stuff, but the wrestling's still fake, mate. Now let's watch something that's actually real. The Real Housewives of New Jersey.
Are you watching reality TV? It's not real, mate. He's not dating him.
Here we go again. My non-fan friend is telling me why I shouldn't like reality TV, but he has no idea. America's greatest TV show of recent times is one of familial betrayal, corporate treachery, sexual scandal, and Succession. I am, of course, talking about Monday Night Raw.